And yes. It's the last time I'll be saying that on this feed. The news is out. If you haven't heard it, you're only hearing it here. I either apologize or understand why you're celebrating. I am taking a job at ESPN and will no longer be on the College Football Enquirer. A bit of news that broke last week that was greeted with great, I don't know what. It was greeted. I'll say that.
It was sure greeted.
It was responded to by our passionate fans.
Woo. Woo.
You know how I greeted it, Dan?
Yeah.
A fart.
Okay.
That's one way. That's one way.
Dan, don't let the door hit you. How about that?
Yeah, there was some of that. Finally, this thing will get good.
I know this. I have heard in recent days from Senators Manchin, Tuberville, and Cruz who want to know how the hell this happened. Where are the guardrails that would have kept Dan Wetzel out of the transfer portal, that would have allowed this to go on, sight unseen, details unknown? You were tampered with. And we're going to have an inquiry. We're going to have an investigation. We're going to have Senate hearings. Guardrails, Dan. Guardrails.
The guardrails.
We've been saying we needed them, and you violated those tenets.
Wait till Deloitte tries to investigate me.
Mm-hmm. Your little NIL deal with Ohio State, or
maybe that was it. The footballs I had.
Footballs.
People were like, if only we had bought more footballs, I wouldn't have left. I've been deemed Yoko Ono, Benedict Arnold.
Should we have a reading of the mean tweets? Do we need to go there?
You have some? Go ahead. I accept all the hits I'm getting from the people. They're upset with me. They're worried. They're all of this. I'll read this. You have some mean tweets, Pat?
I can get some. Absolutely.
We had there's plenty out there, Dan.
There were. It was the precise reaction I was expecting. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
As the precise reaction. Someone said, what's going to happen? I said, they're going to go wild. But that's the beauty of this show. And I will say this, I'm not going to wax poetic here too much, but this is why I love all you guys so much, and we all do, is we started this show. It's a shoestring operation. Our current producer, Emmy, who's tremendous, just said we did 8 minutes of show prep today, which was a new record.
Yeah.
It may be. But it was because somehow we found an audience of people who wanted to talk about allowed us to talk about our favorite sport in the manner that we wanted to talk about it, which is sometimes serious and sometimes with outrage and sometimes about actual football or any other part, but also with a lot of laughs and comedy and self-deprecation and all of that. And I will say this, the fans that there's thousands of people who just absolutely love the show. And I don't sometimes know why, but I am thankful, right? We've talked about this, for what reason, but they've had, we've met them out. The direct messages, the email, just people contacting you. I've called people on their, it's my dad's 70th birthday where you give them a call, you hear these stories that, this is something my brother and I do together. We both watch and then we both listen or watch and we have something, to chat about, or people who have been sick, help them through different things. All of those different stuff, not just we have a lot of athletic directors and commissioners and people and politicians that
real
listen.
Congressmen. Yeah.
Real congressmen. Yeah. Senators. I don't know if we've ever gotten, I don't think Trump or Biden or maybe, does the show go on when Obama was around? It might have. This show's been around a while.
We almost had what the VP candidate on whose name I
Oh,
now
yeah.
know. Tim Walz.
They were
Tim
going to
Walz
give us
was
Tim
also-
Walz.
Right.
Yeah, but that never happened. Probably. See, the whole election would have
There you
swung.
go. That's right.
They wouldn't go on Joe Rogan. They wouldn't even come on the College Football Enquirer. We were then going to have JD Vance. Don't be angry. Don't start that.
Yeah.
I said if I'm having Tim Walz, I'm going to try to get JD Vance to talk Ohio State football. Anyway, that didn't happen. That was our only foray into possibly politics. I was a little nervous about that. I'm kind of glad that never happened.
Yeah, we would have screwed that up.
I think it's actually a bit more poetic that our final guest that I believe we had was Merle Code. So we had
Merle Code was a guest. We don't do guests. We had 3 guests. Jimmy Kimmel, because he started the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. So we figured, we had Jack Swarber because he had a big announcement and he's a powerful guy. We thought that was good. That was actually a really good episode.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then Merle Code, I was talking to, he was in the, he was a shoe consultant for Adidas. And he was, had been sentenced to, I don't know how long he did, but any more than one day was one day too many. And he said, well, can I come on the show Thursday? Basically, he said, I'm going to prison like the next day or 2 days later. I was like, how do you deny that request? Yeah, absolutely. So, and he was great. He was great. Merle's out and trying. A lot of people are trying to rebuild their life from that. Boy, we got a lot of content out of that thing.
Whew. No, we didn't.
But all the people that listened and brought us into their life, and you get people saying this really helped me out. And I what I would say is it worked both ways. I think for all of us, it certainly for me. I'll just speak for me, because there's times when life happens, and you could always do this show and like laugh for an hour. Yeah. And, it's great no matter what. So that was what we were trying to convey. So I do appreciate it, but I knew you would all turn on me.
That I will say, no matter this occasionally can be a stressful job. It's not like we're digging ditches or working in the coal mines, but it can be stressful with travel and deadlines and that sort of thing. I always ended the show in a better mood than I started the show. So we had fun doing it. That is for sure. So that we enjoyed putting out the product, and we really enjoyed hearing from all the people who liked it. I do have a couple of tweets.
I'm going to say one more thing before you get to the main tweets. We barely ever missed a show. I don't think I missed a show in 6 years.
Yeah.
I took it. I didn't take a lot of vacations, but when I did, I brought the show. We did the show in Japan and France. Like we always, Ross was calling in.
Remember, I did the show on the cruise boat in the middle of the Caribbean.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That's how much we enjoyed it. And that's how much we appreciated you guys that we wanted to do it. So do know that as much as you guys are all bagging on me now, I still love you. Go ahead, Pat. What do you got? This is good.
Let's see.
Might as well get roasted on this thing.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of Yoko Ono out there. So you crushed the Beatles. You do get credit from one guy. You were ahead of the curve with Power Slap. So congratulations.
See, I'm turning it in.
That's true. You got me on Power Slap.
Should start my
of course, I haven't
Power
watched
Slap.
it again since I watched it with you at the Masters last year. But
Power Slap Pod.
Yeah, somebody said you can make cool customer Pat Forde laugh out loud consistently. I'm really not a very cool customer.
No.
It's like known to fly off the handle 3 times a show. Let's see. First the footballs, now the mouse.
No, sellout. I'm a sellout.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sold out. Who else are we going to get to mispronounce words every episode?
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody said, forget. I don't care about the pod. Why did they kill outside the lines? I'm sorry, but we're not answering that.
You're the answer for that, Dan.
Oh, I'm already getting. Can you get me bootleg cable? My remote needs batteries. Can you?
Somebody expects you to be a mole inside the playoff.
Yes.
Yeah. They're also wondering if you're turning back, you're back on the pod, or you're now going to become a craft beer drinker. I can answer that. No.
Hell no. I'm still mowing my lawn too. All of that. You can't change me. You can't change me.
But here's my concern. My concern, Dan Wetzel.
No.
For your level of sellout here. So when Pete went to ESPN, all of a sudden he got a hairstyle.
Mm.
And I looked at the glam shot that they posted with you, and there's like a little something going on there other
from
than
1995.
No, comb my hair.
It's that's it. Are you going to now start combing your hair, or even perhaps adding product?
I was about to say, it looks like there's some product in there.
There might have been product in there, yeah.
Some
a little
texture,
yeah.
A lot of
contour.
A lot of Jan Wetzel was involved in that picture.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, product was involved. Yeah, I know. Listen, Pat, it's called an industry secret. We're not going to reveal. They keep putting me on Netflix to boost ratings, and that's really it. It's really it.
Yeah. The guy that I look at on my laptop 3 times a week, if all of a sudden you start, looking like you're Botoxing or something, there's going to be real issues.
Yeah.
It's good lighting. Good lighting and product can do a lot for you. It's amazing. Yeah, we'll see.
He's going to get LASIK surgery, ditch the glasses.
No.
Pat.
I'd put the Walgreens out of business if I stopped buying these.
The $5.99 readers.
Yeah. I did want to read a letter from probably our most devout fan, and I know there probably could be a slap fight battle over who really is, but it's from Emily in Missouri, who we've discussed many times, the woman that not only has listened to all, I think this is 703 episodes, but during COVID was so bored, she re-listened to every episode, which, if you know our show, makes no sense because you're listening to like Race for the Case week 4 of the 2018 season.
Invigorating.
Like there's no, like I could see going back, oh, this guy, like Joe Rogan, whatever, like it's interviews or something. But no, there would be no reason to do this. But it happened. So we got this email last week, and we discussed her last week on the 700 show. Last weekend, my husband was in our basement doing laundry while I was upstairs watching TV. Good husband. He's doing his part. I heard him shouting my name at the top of his lungs. I leapt off the couch, racing downstairs, thinking he had fallen and hurt himself, or that the washing machine had exploded, or some other terrible thing. First off, what are the chances doing the laundry is sitting in the basement drinking beer, listening to the pod?
Yeah.
No one bothers you when you're doing laundry.
Yeah. If you're going to do the laundry, that's the way to do it.
He met me at the bottom of the stairs and yelled, "They're talking about you on the pod again." We listened to the beginning of episode 700 together and laughed as you guys referenced the crazy woman from Missouri who listened to all the old pods. I joked that it was a good thing I hadn't mentioned that when I'm in a bad mood, I listen to the episode of Pat ranking Kentucky Derby horses' names to cheer myself up. Arguably our greatest episad.
That was a good one.
It was after an NFL draft. It was in Cleveland, 2021 maybe.
Yeah.
And Pat had, for some reason, decided to maybe drink during the draft, or you were just drinking?
Derby week, man.
Oh, okay.
It's Derby week. The drinking happens. So.
Yeah. And decided he's written these columns talking about the worst Kentucky Derby horse names. Go find this thing. And is nothing like Pat just ripping the hell out of some horse from 1912 that's been dead. Been dead for 100 years. Like the poor horse died like 97 years ago, and Pat is making fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
When the horse is named Wool Sandals, it deserves to get ripped. R.I.P.
Then today she wrote, I opened Twitter at lunch and saw Pat's tweet about me and shouted, "No, I can't believe Dan is joining ESPN. If this means the end of the pod as we know it, I will be devastated. Today is the worst day. You guys are the best. I hope the pod continues, hopefully with Dan. But if not, then without him, add Sully back." I mean, I'm getting traded.
Wow. Already.
Sully Vol, Sean Sullivan.
On the mind.
Hey, a starter blows out a knee, you bring up someone else. You move the drill and you keep going.
Next man up, Dan. Next man up.
Sully Vol is good. Thank you to Sully Vol. He was a producer. Sean Anderson, Joe DeLeon, and Emmy, and everyone else who occasionally filled in to do this. All did great jobs. So what is going to happen to the pod? I can't say. I don't. What I will say is this: we'll have more information, more detailed information, more specific information soon. And that isn't a great answer, but that's what we got. So stick with us. More to come.
Yep. I think it's fair to say too, Dan, on this feed, that we'll go on a little hiatus. This feed will be on a little hiatus, I would think, through March Madness.
Yeah.
So enjoy your basketball without the pod.
Yeah. Take some time, get some fresh air. But that's it. We'll have more news later, and that's all we can really say at this point. But
don't forget about us.
Don't forget about us. I think it's going to all work out. It'll all be fine. And you can always, where to find me, yell at me and laugh at me. And it'll be good. As I said, a shepherd does not leave his flock.
That's right. We had one perceptive listener who picked up on that.
Couple of them did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Couple of them did. So, that's what we got so far, which I know isn't really satisfying, but that is how business works sometimes. And unfortunately, this is business. It doesn't sound like it, but I don't know what kind of business it is, but it is business. So that's all we need on that, I think, right? This is like you watch these a local newscaster retires in like a 6-month.
Yeah.
Not the Pope.
No, we would need to be a little more fond of you for something like that. For sure.
That's really it. There's a lot of people like, yes. But I'm not dead yet. Still got this show. So, all right, we'll be back right after this, and we'll talk some actual college sports. All right. So, I'm not going to lie. I barely do any prep for this show normally, and certainly wasn't going to do a lot for the last show.
No, why would you?
I believe the term is quiet quitting.
Yeah.
You have an ethos to uphold.
It's been quitting forever. What I will say is, I thought this hit kind of a broad theme of ours throughout this podcast, and that is the college sports is changing, but that it is okay. And I certainly understand and always have understood the frustration of fans when players, again, it was exciting when kids, we'd lament the end of signing day, right? It was exciting when players would sign with your school and you knew you could watch them for the next 3 or 4 years. And that is no longer the case, right? Transfer portal, certainly NIL has brought above the table money out there. It's different. The sport is different. Conference realignment to me is the biggest damaging factor, but we've addressed all of these different subjects. However, I've been adamant that the sky is not falling. Stop crying. Adapt. All businesses have to change. All businesses have to deal with new outside forces. And as much as everyone wants to yell, they cannot win. The NCAA, the structure of amateurism and how the world worked cannot survive a court challenge. They just mostly lose. And the Supreme Court, being the final arbiter, has shown no sympathy to the old argument. So you have to adapt. And there's a lot of news comes out every time an old coach retires, or some coach, even a young coach, just says, I can't do this anymore. It's impossible. How can you run a team in this environment? And lots of people scream and yell and look, we're dead, we're doomed. And the thing about sports is there's a winner and a loser of every game. Like there's going to be a champion. Someone will be successful. It's not like an industry just dies and like all of a sudden 80% of the results are losses, right? So someone's going to succeed. And this college basketball season, Pat's written about this, is particularly fascinating. And I thought about it as I watched Tom Izzo and Michigan State win the Big Ten on Sunday by beating Michigan by, I think, 3 full games. Just dominated the Big Ten.
They rolled.
And, when I think of, young, innovative, fresh-faced coaches, I think Tom Izzo. No, I mean, this is the oldest school guy you got. The man, is famous for putting his team in football pads to practice rebounding. Nobody's tougher than Izzo. And he's also 70 years young. And yet there he is with this team that plays, I would think, if you're a Spartan fan, it reminds you of any of his other great teams. They play absolutely the same way. He found the guys. He's built the depth. He has the culture. They're getting in pushing matches with Michigan over whether they should be kissing the floor or not. 30-year, goes back to Sean Respert 30, 35 years ago. Tradition, Spartans matter, Spartans will, the whole thing. And you look at the rest of some of these contenders. Rick Pitino, 72 years old. Got a Final Four.
Won the Big East by 3 games.
Rick Barnes, 70 at Tennessee. Always been a fantastic coach. Tennessee, they didn't win the SEC, but hey, they could absolutely be a Final Four team, absolutely win the national title. Kelvin Sampson, 69. Is this I can't criticize the players because I'm fearful. If there's a tougher coach than Izzo, it's Sampson.
Right. Yeah. Won the Big 12 by 4 games.
Won the Big 12 by 4 games.
Yeah.
Bruce Pearl, 65. Sorry, Bruce. I know throwing in with the
lumping him in with the 70-year-olds.
Sorry. BP. I'm sorry, man. But 65, knew you when. Did they win the SEC or not? Because they lost out.
Yeah, they did. No,
they won the SEC. Okay, so the Big East, the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12 were all won by coaches 65 and over. And you have Rick Barnes, who is right there. Whatever. They didn't win the league, but they're a terrific team and been a terrific team. We had a great team last year. Tennis, running these programs. And none of these guys are at what you would call a blue blood program. Maybe Michigan State, but not really. Kinda.
Only because of Izzo.
Really, only because of Izzo. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. But this can be done, and it doesn't. For all the oh my God, you can't do it. Well, what about these guys, Pat?
I think it's a great point. That.
Well, you made it first, so I stole your point like a month later. So it was.
Of course, that's why it's a great point. Absolutely. the first 40 minutes column of the year, back February 1st or whatever. Refer back. But, no, these guys, first of all, they are great coaches. Secondly, they can adapt in areas that they feel like they need to, but they won't give away the ethos of the program, the culture of the program. They will draw a line there. I mean, Kelvin Sampson's 2 starting guards are both transfers. Bruce Pearl has transfers. Rick Pitino has transfers. Not so much for Izzo. But the guys that they get, it's still the same basketball. You will come in and you will work your ass off if you're going to play for me. That's the bottom line. You watch St. John's, they don't make any shots. They just run around like defensive demons and go crazy on the offensive glass, which is the exact same thing Michigan State does and has always done. So there's an ability to coach modern basketball but still have the demands of a program culture that they've always had. And, nobody blames Mike Krzyzewski for retiring. He was in his 70s. Same Jim Larinaga was in his 70s. Jim Boeheim was he late 70s? Is he in his 80s?
77 maybe he was. Yeah. Well, there was a bit of that too. Like people like, oh my God, they're well, of course they're walking away. I mean, what?
Yeah, they were at an age to walk away. Yeah. And some of them may have been like stuff. Yes, Tony Bennett and Jay Wright would be more on the end of like, I can't do this. Well, fine, okay, somebody else will. Somebody else will, and they'll do it well. It's okay. You know what? If this isn't for you as a coach, it doesn't mean college sports is going to hell. It really doesn't.
The best coaches evolve, right? We saw that. We see that in football. We saw it through the years of Nick Saban. The best coaches evolve to the best coaches are the most competitive, right? And just in general, in people who are successful in life are the most competitive, and I think they all evolve to keep on winning in whatever way they can. And it does seem to be all these people we're talking about, right, are pretty like ruthlessly competitive. I just watch them coach, right? Izzo, Pearl, and Sampson, and obviously Pitino. I mean, they're just all incredibly ruthlessly competitive people, and they find ways to win and evolve with the landscape of college athletics. There's a lot of football and obviously a lot of just talked about the basketball coaches, and there's a lot of athletic directors too, administrators who, this era in college athletics is it's changing so much so quickly. It has pushed out a lot of people. I think there are some people though that in the industry take this as a challenge to get over, or another hurdle in their life to get over. I go back to the quote from Kurt Signetti to me last month. If I don't have a chip on my shoulder, I'll create one. And I think all these people we're talking about, all these basketball coaches they want the chips, as many as they can, on their shoulder. And this is just another one. Like, oh, you think I'm old and I can't do this in this changing environment? Well, I'll show you.
Yeah, I think that was a big part with Izzo, particularly. Like Izzo had a couple years, and he just said, "I'm going to figure this out," and he's figured it out. This team's terrific. They're really fun to watch.
Yeah, they had a little slump, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to go 30 straight years or whatever point, but yeah, they were not as good for a while.
Yeah,
and but he was determined, and you find your way. And then there'll be young guys that step up. There's 37-year-old John Shire's doing pretty well too. It's not all old coaches, but I get the shock to the system that some of this is, but this is what worries me about so much of the legislation, particularly that they're trying to get in Congress, and let alone all the other stuff. Is this we must stop this because it is bad because it's new. And if you follow these guys, who again are your oldest school dudes, it just is different. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just different. This is how the sport is going to be played. And the idea that we have to go back to the old way, was it really that great? I've said this repeatedly, but shoe companies determined where so many players were going. Who could win or lose was based on how big of a shoe deal you signed, and whether the shoe companies would stock your team with talent. Why do we want to go back to that? That favors a couple schools, but it doesn't open up the door for anybody else to say, well, I can just figure this out. And that's why you also have, Alabama or Iowa State. Like, there's different ages in these coaches that aren't necessarily old or young, but they just, hey, I coach, I'll get this thing done. And that's why, so much knee-jerk reaction on guardrails, and why I made fun of guardrails for so long. It's like, relax, let's see what happens. If Tom Izzo, I mean, these guys are they destroyed their leagues. They just annihilated them. Where's the problem?
Yeah, no, there's not. And that, so much of it goes back to not just wanting the way things used to be, but having the control that used to be there. And people in charge in all walks of life, to a degree, like control, relish control. And the control in college sports has fundamentally shifted during the course of the life of this podcast, from complete and total institutional control to now a fairly significant percentage of athlete control. Still less than half. They don't have, the athletes are still the tail on the dog. They are not the dog, but there's a lot more control that they have in terms of where they want to play and how much they can make to play there. And that has been really hard for people to accept, but it hasn't been the death of college sports.
That's what happens when you wait so long, right? You push off evolution and progression for so long. The college, just athletic administrator sort of entity as a whole, pushed off for so long. So of course the pendulum, as they might say, kind of violently and very quickly swings the other way. And now they're obviously tomorrow, we have another lovely congressional hearing here on Capitol Hill where there'll be college athletic administrators. I think it was announced this morning. Wisconsin's athletic director will be here as a witness, along with a couple of coaches, and one in the SEC. I think there's a swimming diving coach as well. It's coming, a track coach in the SEC, and they'll be arguing to swing that pendulum, try to get it a little more back in more regulation and all that. We'll see what happens.
I think back to Mike Krzyzewski's career. You mentioned him earlier, and it's like there was a time when Krzyzewski would recruit, and it was come to Duke, 4 years, get your degree, and then move on, and that's how it was. Remember, there was a time when John Thompson players were too scared. I wrote a book with Alonzo Mourning. He said I was too scared to go in and tell him I was thinking of leaving early. Like, John, when you can scare Alonzo Mourning, you are a tough dude.
Yeah.
That is not maybe the only, I think it was maybe probably the only man to ever intimidate Alonzo Mourning, my man. But by the end, Krzyzewski's, it was a one and done. He's come to Duke. We'll market you and you're out.
Yeah.
Come here, Zion. You're not staying for more than a year, but look what we'll do for you. And, and that continues now. Cooper Flagg. It's interesting. Will Cooper Flagg stay? He might.
No.
He might.
Think so.
No, he's not. I know. But he could.
He is making a staggering amount of money, I believe. But he's going to make more.
We have seen guys stay. I'll say that. We've seen Hunter Dickinson.
That's the one that comes to mind.
And the football guys. We've seen it in the draft and all that. Mm-hmm. And then there's this other part, and I know, Pat, you also wrote about this. I love these stories, is the guys from the smaller schools that get a chance to step up, right? They get to transfer up. And just because the big time didn't, the Big Ten or the SEC didn't like them when they were 18, 16, when kids start committing, but then they work and become great players. Sears at Alabama, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, no, I just because you screwed up once doesn't mean I can never get to play high major basketball. And then there's the story of Drake, who made the NCAA tournament yesterday from the Missouri Valley. They're 30-3. They have this coach, Ben McCollum, who won 4 national titles at Northwest Missouri State, Division II. And he gets the job at Drake, which is in the Missouri Valley, and is an excellent program and an excellent league. And he's trying to find a whole new team. 12 guys, 12 kids transferred out of Drake. Two graduated and one, I think, did stop playing basketball. So 15 kids left the program, and he's basically got an empty cupboard. So he brings in 4 of his players from Northwest Missouri. These are Division II players. And then he brings a junior college transfer, 2 high school recruits, and 2 transfers from Wyoming. His team had the entire team, only 2 players and then him as a coach had ever been in Division I. And they'd only started 11 games total. And these D2 kids, given this opportunity after being told you're not good enough for D1, the coach isn't, the players aren't, all this, they're 30-3 and are an absolute joy to watch. And I would not want to draw in March, right, Pat?
Correct. Yeah, no, it's a great story. And it is indicative of a little bit of the fluidity up and down that transfer portal has brought. We've seen it in football a million times, guys that will move up from lower level of FBS to a power program and make a big impact, and even probably more so in basketball. And this is the most dramatic instance of it that I've seen, where you got basically a D2 lineup moves up to D1 and kills everybody. 30-3, phenomenal. And if you haven't seen Bennett Sturts, do yourself a favor in the NCAA tournament and watch him, coach's son from just outside of Kansas City, he's a perfect point guard where he's going to run this offense perfectly, and he refuses to be sped up. You cannot speed him up. You can't do it. And just a phenomenal, fundamental guy, never leaves the floor, leads the nation in minutes played. So Drake, they don't go up and down. They play a little bit like Virginia, where they're very deliberate, but they're really good and really fun. And yes, Dan, some 6 or 7 seed is going to probably not enjoy facing Drake in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
It was a little bit of like speaking of Curt Cignetti, what he did at Indiana this past year, right? Taking, I don't know what, he ended up taking 22 or 23 maybe players from James Madison.
I think it was like 12 or 13.
Maybe it was 23 new transfers total. Yeah, but half
like
of them,
a dozen from James Madison.
Yeah, about half of them were from James Madison. A lot of them ended up starting or playing key roles. And a lot of those other transfers were from the group of 6 level 2, I think. So maybe that's the number. I was getting at was there was like 22 or 23 group of 6 kind of transfers, and all of them had contributing roles in going 11-1 in the regular season and making the playoffs. So it's funny what happens when you everybody kind of no matter your talent or your high school rating level or whatever you want to say, if you're kind of all rowing the same way in a lot of ways, you can get some things done. Not to channel PJ Fleck randomly, but
row the boat. Yeah. Can I ask one thing that, like, especially now that we are spending more money, by we I mean college athletics, spending more money than ever on recruiting? How do they miss so many guys the first time? How do guys that good? How does Bennett Sturtz end up as a D2 player? How does some of the guys that went to James Madison not sign with Virginia and Virginia Tech, who they would have gladly signed with? But it astounds me, given the size of the recruiting staffs, the amount of effort and attention that's put into player procurement. Like, how do they miss this much?
Inexact science, as they always say, huh? Just like coaching searches and hiring coaches, it kind of never. Sometimes you never know. I mean, a lot of these players too, I feel like they're so young, 17, 16, some of them, I guess, all the way down to like 16 years old, 16, 17, when they're kind of ranked at first. I think a lot of them just late development too. I wonder if a lot of them are developed late in the process. You're right, Pat. A lot of schools spend a lot of money on recruiting staffs, and now we're seeing a lot of money on general managers and all that stuff. And it's a mystery sometimes how some players fall through the crack.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is a lot of players fall through the crack. We always knew there would be some, right? There's a guy here or there, but I think if you've been to an AAU basketball tournament, you might not, you're not seeing how a guy comes off a high screen and hits a step back through. It's a lot of stuff that goes into being a good basketball player. And obviously football, you can put on so much weight, and you can't, it's hard to judge the want, the want. So,
right. Well, especially, yes, if you recruit AAU tournaments for want, then
yeah,
a challenge.
7-on-7, same thing, probably.
Yeah.
Real quick question, back to basketball briefly, that my colleague Frank Schwab pointed out on Twitter. Is there a program in this country in college basketball, any program that Rick Pitino could not get to the NCAA tournament within 3 years?
No, absolutely not.
Did it at BU. It took 4 years at BU, but whatever. 1983.
Yeah, he was like 30 years old then.
5, yeah. He's 30. Providence, he took to the Final Four in the second year. Kentucky had in the Elite Eight in the third. They were ineligible the first 2 years. Louisville made it in the second. Obviously, they won titles at Kentucky and Louisville. The NCAA will tell you otherwise, but that's not true. Iona, he took first year, and then St. John's is 27-4. Do you think like you put him in at I don't know what the worst program is, but like give him Maine or something?
Yeah, no, like the worst program is Mississippi Valley State, according to the Ken Pomeroy rankings, 364 out of 364. Interestingly enough, the last time they went to the tournament, Rick Pitino's former point guard, Sean Woods, was the coach. But I would say this. You give him 5 guys off the street from Itabena, he'll go to the tournament in 3 years. It don't matter. It does not matter. He will get the players, he will make them better, and they will go to the tournament. They will win they would win the SWAC.
Talk about a blast from the past. Sean Woods, I covered that team working for the Clarion Ledger in Jackson, Mississippi. That Mississippi back, the SWAC tournament, I think, was in Jackson. So I remember covering Sean Woods and that Mississippi Valley team who made the run to the NCAA tournament. Ah, yes, the Cinderella runs that we see. Will they end? Hopefully not.
Apparently, we want to tell people this is not allowed. This can't happen. All the fun parts. This is terrible. Tom Izzo's winning again. Society's ruined.
Yeah. Yeah. For the 26th straight year, Tom Izzo's going to the NCAA tournament. Isn't that awful? Yeah. Right.
Cannot continue when Izzo has a good team. We must make sure Nike has its favorite programs win. All right. We got some more stuff and then a pretty comical people's court after this. All right. Interesting story, Ross, that you had Yahoo Sports. The American Athletic Conference, the AAC, the American, is well, you describe it, but they are proposing a sort of a spending minimum for its programs of $10 million over 3 years. So you can't just sort of not invest in your school's programs if you want to be in the American. Describe what this is, because I think it slipped by a lot of people, including me. And there's sort of like the groundwork for if you're one of these lower level schools at the big conferences, you might want to keep an eyeball on this.
Yeah. It's to me the most interesting thing is the ramifications on this. Will we see this kind of in the future? As you mentioned, the American passed on Friday. Its presidents voted to institute this minimum standard to make sure that everybody is investing in the revenue sharing concept as part of the House settlement, like they should. So there are 15 members of the American. 2 of the members, Navy and Army, can't. Right, they can't share revenue with athletes because they're service academies, and they will not be opting into the settlement. However, everybody else can and will. In part of the concept that they passed, the initiative they passed on Friday, you have to share, as you mentioned, $10 million over 3 years. Now, there's no minimum per year. It's just $10 million, and that does include new scholarships too. So if you added $1 million of new scholarships, then that would count toward the $10 million. But most of it probably will be, 2/3 of it will probably be what you share with athletes as far as revenue. And it doesn't sound like a ton when you see that power conference schools, most of them are probably going to share in between 15 and 20 million annually, not just over 3 years. But for the leagues in the group of 6, as I try to explain in that story, right, that and everybody knows this, I think, but the financial disparity is pretty huge. Most group of 6 programs, especially these schools we're talking about in the American, rely on university funds and subsidies and student fees to support their athletic department because it really doesn't turn a profit. And so where you're going to find this money is going to be an interesting part of this, right? And as you mentioned, Dan, I think to take it a step further, when you look at the nation as a whole and some of these conferences and what's happening with these leagues, the tops of these conferences, are wanting everybody within the league to invest more like they are. And they also want more of the money generated in the league. And you look at that, what happened in the Pac-12, that obviously happened, right? And it led to the breakup. You look at what happened just now in the ACC, Clemson and Florida State trying to exit and now in turn staying to get more of the money. Eventually, I think there's a view that the top of conferences, maybe even within the SEC and Big Ten, the top of conferences eventually, want the bottom half to either invest more or to leave eventually. And I think that this, what the American did, may be, now it could be years from now, it could be decades from now, Dan, but may be the blueprint for how to do something that I think Kirk Schulz of Washington, the Washington State president, described when talking about the Pac-12 very well, a curing of conferences, how to cure a conference, weed out the lower resource, smaller programs. And I think the American just gave a blueprint on how to do that, create minimum investment standards.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it could be part of the doomsday scenario for the people that are in the bottom half of those leagues, power conference leagues in the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC and elsewhere. We've already seen some stratification along those lines with revenue sharing, especially in the ACC, but this is another means by which the power leagues could tell people that they don't deem to be as valuable, hit the road. The other element of this that I think is interesting with the AAC is they've been trying to keep Memphis and Tulane particularly, but also South Florida, happy, right? And keep them in the conference as opposed to being wooed by the Pac-12 Mountain West. So one thing that you can do is say, well, we need the whole league to be better to help our conference strength of schedule, to help us get a team in the playoffs so that we're not watching Boise go every year. So, hey, Rice, Temple, Charlotte, Tulsa, let's go. Hit a lick over there. Spend a little bit of money. And it does go back, Dan, you mentioned this, a couple episodes ago of, do you get people for markets or not? Hey, getting Charlotte's a nice TV market. Rice is in Houston. Temple's in Philly. Florida Atlantic's in South Florida. Doesn't matter if nobody's watching them and if you're not investing in your programs. So I think they're sending a message there to the top of their conference. Hey, we're looking out for you guys, but also to the bottom of the conference, step up.
Yeah, you want to do this or not? You want to be in Division I or not? You want to, I totally get it at the American. I could totally see. I love decades from now. Talk about a trend. We identify trends early.
That's right.
In like 2045, when this happens, you remember.
Yeah,
you heard it
when
first.
The SEC kicks out Mississippi
Ross
State.
Dellenger, you heard it first.
That's right.
2 decades ago. My only thing is, like, if you're in these leagues and you're dominating, wouldn't you want the bottom of the league to continue to not try?
Yes, I would think.
Yeah,
I mean,
so like,
but not at the AAC level. You need
not at the AAC.
Yeah.
I get it at AAC. Yeah. I get it at some of these levels where you got to be like, we got to get good. And if we're not, you guys are dragging us down. All that, totally get it. But if I'm in the Big Ten, I'm Ohio State. Like, I like spending more money than you.
Yeah,
like, the NBA has quite enjoyed the Sacramento Kings through the years.
Yeah, but I would say there to play like the other side, the devil's advocate here, it would be you bring down our whole league. You bring down the value of the league, and you bring down the TV money that we might get, and then of course we've talked about this before too, but the top half of leagues, just like what happened in the ACC, probably a lot of them saying, well, we should get more of that TV money. We bring the value. So if you're not bringing the value, I think there's a point of we all need to be in this and invest at the same or similar levels if we're going to continue to distribute revenue equally.
Yeah. That might be their trick. Well, it's pretty interesting. Early trend on that. Go ahead.
And there's some, we didn't mention it, but like, what happens if an American school doesn't reach the 10 million? What exactly happens? And as part of the resolution that they passed, which is a part of their bylaws, so they did change bylaws in the conference. It says that your membership will be under review, whatever that means, and certainly seems to be an indication that you might be exited from the conference in some way.
Yeah. All right. Going to be interesting. Just a couple quick notes here. I had a couple things before we get to the People's Court. We had an update. Someone is a Nielsen house. And remember, we were talking Nielsen ratings recently?
Yeah.
So they say now you put this thing in your house and you put it next to the TV, and the TV shows emit some kind of code.
See, it's part of Big Brother watching
that they picked up on, that the little thing picks up on. I don't know whether this is true because, of course, I'm not doing any research for the last episode. But
don't start now.
So that's the way they get around everybody saying they're watching PBS documentaries and not, Love is Blind or whatever. But there's that. So I did have that. Also, while looking up Rick Pitino earlier, I came across this item on his Wikipedia that just is fantastic. Was when he worked at the University of Hawaii as a assistant and then was briefly the head coach. This was 1977. There was an NCAA report on sanctions against the program.
Oh, yeah.
And Pitino was cited for providing airfare for a player between New York and Honolulu. Getting in on New York.
That's a big airfare.
It's a pretty good one. Arranging for student athletes to receive used cars for season tickets and handing out coupons to players for free food at McDonald's.
Nice.
That's what passed for an NCAA violation back then.
Real quick, I got to tell a quick backstory on that one.
Okay.
So he's getting interviewed at Kentucky for the job. Kentucky is immersed in this massive scandal that ends up putting him on 2-year postseason ban, just reduces the program to rubble, and then he comes in and fixes it. But he's interviewing in Lexington for the job back when things actually happened in public, as opposed to ADs trying to hide every single thing they do. And he was eating dinner with C.M. Newton, the Kentucky athletic director, and Jerry Tipton, the relentless beat writer of the Herald Leader, goes into dinner to ask Rick Pitino about NCAA violations he committed at Hawaii. Wow. Yeah, that went over well. It didn't get their relationship off to a great start.
Well, Tipton is here for that was Jerry Tipton. He was as good as there ever has been.
Yeah.
As good as there's ever been. Yeah. We're not rah-rah on this. You gave out a couple cheeseburgers back at the Honolulu.
What do you say about that, Coach?
Yes, that's right here.
Eating your steak dinner.
So Pitino dismissed the report saying, I didn't make any mistakes. I don't care what anyone says, which I think should be on his tombstone. I might be the greatest coach in the history of the sport of basketball. He might be.
Yeah.
He might. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Steve Kerr's got all these. Yeah. Well, he didn't get that. He might be the greatest at least college level basketball coach of all time. Rick Pitino. He's also been at 7 schools and had every scandal known to man, including cheeseburgers at McDonald's. Just a cheeseburger. I didn't make any mistakes. I don't care what anyone says. I want Pitino. It's fantastic.
That should be on his tombstone.
What a man. What a coach. Yeah. What a coach. Love it. Same line for. I don't remember.
A few different things.
All right. Anything else? Do we have any other business before I get to this People's Court?
Go to People's Court.
Okay. All right. So we have this one. It's big in the Daily Mail. I'd like to give a shout out to the Daily Mail for providing me with so much, and will continue to provide me with material and entertainment. Yes. But the Daily Mail,
years.
The big story in the Daily Mail right now is a trial going on from a 2019 theft at the Bellingham Palace. Not one of the more famous palaces, but the Bellingham Palace, which is, let me see where this thing's located. I don't believe
got a lot of palaces over there.
They got a lot of palaces. It's in Woodstock, Oxfordshire.
Okay.
It's the seat of the Dukes of Marlborough. Anyway, this thing is, it's incredible. Go to Palace Bellingham. Anyway, there was a theft a few years ago, 2019, and the gang of burglars, as don't even say alleged. A gang of burglars. We don't know who they are, although we have some guys, Daily Mail, getting right after it. They're outraged by this. A pre-dawn 5 a.m. Raid. Gang of 5 men are seen using sledgehammers to break through a window at the palace. Wow. And then seconds later, they jump in a stolen Isuzu truck and a VW Polo, carrying their stolen goods, which is a golden toilet. They had made an 18-karat gold toilet that was worth 4.8 million pounds, British pounds, which is probably worth about $6 million. The entire toilet was functioning and made of 18-karat gold in this palace. And it was, I guess, they dubbed it a piece of art, and they titled it, I'm not too happy about this, for UK, America. That's what it was titled.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's put a tariff on that. Tariff your golden toilets. They stole a 4.8 million pound golden toilet in a daring needless to say, this is it just enraptured the country, and the Daily Mail is just could not be more excited about this thing.
Yeah.
It includes in the trial that they asked one of the alleged perpetrators if he had, quote, took advantage of the gold toilet's facilities.
Did you in the toilet?
You said it was functioning, right?
It was functioning, and he said he did.
Oh.
And they asked Crispin Allet, KC, the defense counsel, asked Mr. Jones, what was it like? Mr. Jones replied, this is from the BBC, splendid.
Was this like on the witness stand? He says
yes, in the trial. I'm trying to process this whole thing out. I don't have a great recap story for it, but get to the dailymail.com. Daily Mail UK, I think it is really there. It's dailymail.co.uk. It's the greatest website in the world, by the way.
So, but all right, the incredible extravagance and indulgence that you are rich enough to have a gold-plated toilet that works.
Not plated.
No, all right, yeah,
gold.
No,
that's it.
Gold. And it's worth like $10 million, right? 4.8 million pounds.
I don't know.
Solid gold. The whole thing is gold.
The whole thing. It's not 4.8 million pounds. I don't know, pounds to dollar. Let's see here. We'll try it. You keep talking, Pat. I'll look this up.
Yeah. So, like, somebody is clearly just rich enough to do stupid things, but more power to them, I suppose. But to call it America, I would bet right now in England, those and in Europe, those people are quite popular. I would bet they get a lenient sentence for at least making the public aware of a toilet called America. My goodness.
$6.2 million.
Okay.
Wow. I was trying to look for a picture of this toilet.
Well, there's video of them stealing it.
Yeah, I
Really?
see the there's some still frame.
There's
I
a
guess it's
picture
still frame
where
video.
He's holding
Wow.
the seat. This one guy's holding the seat.
It's a beautiful toilet, I have to say. Wow.
There's a picture. There is a picture of it before. A fully working solid gold toilet.
Incredible.
It could be cold though.
And then if you look, it's just very funny
Right?
because
It's a metal.
that's I have many questions.
Yeah.
And then it's just like so then they just have like this cheap toilet roll holder, like paper toilet
Yeah, I see
paper
that.
holder.
Yes.
You see that
yes.
picture?
It's like somewhere you would find like
Home
in a
Depot
bathroom of a
cheap
gas
line.
station.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
dude.
like
Yeah.
there. Like
Yeah.
step
Here's
up
our
the-
gold toilet in this gas station toilet paper roll next to it. Yeah. Great.
like that's it. That's what you put next to it?
yeah.
That's
There's a
like
picture of somebody bowing to it, like a bowing to the throne.
It
right?
is. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. There's a video too of the water going in. I don't know. Anyway, I leave you with this. If you need some further entertainment, read about the golden toilet trial in England.
Yeah.
It should carry you. It should carry you through. All right, that is our show. Appreciate everyone. Again, detailed news soon. We'll try to clear up all the tumult, and we'll talk to you later. Go ahead, Pat. You got something?
Just that in one moment of semi-sincerity, want to congratulate you, first of all, on everything you've done and then your next steps at ESPN, but also for being one hell of a host, because the show was smart, but it was also fun and funny. And I think those things were great for the listeners and great for your coworkers.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
we couldn't do it without the captain steering the ship, even if you at times steered it into rocks and boulders and icebergs.
This is not what they say in the group chat, by the way. They're just showing off. They're trying to be magnanimous. Do not fall for it. Do not fall for it.
We need a congressional investigation.
Yep. We need an investigation.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go. No. So thank you. We'll have more information soon. We'll talk to you later. We're going to send you out with some musical stylings that I know you will all like. Play that song, Emmy. Thank you, guys.
Hooray! We love it in the city of A. Hooray! We love it in A. It's beautiful in autumn, late December brings